The night was silent except for the wind that cut across the frozen fields. Snow fell slowly, covering the ground like a white blanket, hiding every track, every sound. A squad of human soldiers moved through the dark, their boots crunching in the ice, their rifles ready, their eyes sharp. They had been told to watch for enemy scouts, to guard the border, to trust no one. But then, through the snowstorm, they saw something strange, a figure stumbling in the white, small and weak, almost falling with each step. Behind it, a smaller figure held on tightly, shivering, barely able to walk. At first, the soldiers raised their guns, shouting commands, their voices harsh in the cold air. "Stop! Hands where we can see them!" The figures froze, and then one of them collapsed to her knees. It was not a soldier, not a scout, not a threat. It was an alien mother, her skin pale and marked with patterns unknown to human eyes. She was barefoot, her feet blue from the cold, her body trembling as she shielded the child behind her. And then she spoke, her voice soft, almost broken, but clear enough for them to hear. "We just want a warm meal. Please." The soldiers looked at each other, confusion written on their faces. This was the enemy, the same species they had fought in the skies, the same kind their commanders told them to fear. Yet here she was, not holding a weapon, but holding her daughter. The child peeked out, her large dark eyes filled with fear and hunger, her thin body shaking in the wind. One soldier lowered his rifle slightly, but another snapped, "Don't be fooled, this could be a trick." But the woman did not move. She only bowed her head lower. The snow clung to her hair. Her breath came out in heavy clouds, her arms wrapped tightly around the child. It was not the look of a warrior. It was the look of a mother ready to die for her young. The squad leader hesitated. Ed, his heart and his training fighting inside him. His orders were clear. No contact, no mercy. The aliens were dangerous, untrustworthy, always planning an attack. But what he saw did not match the orders. The alien mother was not an enemy tonight. She was just a soul begging for survival. The silence grew heavy, only broken by the child's cough. The sound pierced through the cold night, sharp and painful. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably, some glancing at each other, some looking away. One of them, the youngest in the squad, took a step forward. He reached into his pack, pulled out a piece of bread wrapped in cloth. He held it out slowly, his hands shaking more than the aliens. The mother looked up, her eyes wide, disbelief mixing with hope. She did not snatch it. She did not rush. Instead, she touched the bread with trembling fingers, as if afraid it would vanish. She broke it in half and gave the larger piece to her daughter. The child took it and smiled weakly, whispering a single word in broken English. "Thank you." That simple word cut deeper than any weapon. The soldiers stood frozen, their thoughts torn apart. Was this mercy or was this weakness? Was helping them an act of humanity or an invitation to danger? The leader finally lowered his rifle, but his voice was firm. "We can't stay here, bring them back to base." The others protested at once. "Sir, we can't. Command will kill us for this." But the leader's eyes did not leave the child. "Look at her, does she look like a soldier to you?" The squad hesitated, the storm howled louder, and the decision weighed heavy. If they left the alien mother and child here, they would surely freeze to death before dawn. If they took them to base, they could face punishment, even execution. It was a choice between following orders or listening to their conscience. The mother, still on her knees, clutched her daughter close and whispered again, "We just want a warm meal, please." Her words echoed in their minds. For the first time, the soldiers began to wonder, maybe the war had blinded them. Maybe their greatest test was not on the battlefield, but here, in the snow, with a starving mother and child. The squad leader made his choice. "Move, we're taking them with us." The soldiers obeyed slowly, some still shaking their heads, others silent. The alien mother struggled to stand, the child leaning on her. They walked together through the storm, not as enemies, not as allies, but as lives bound by hunger and survival. Behind them, the wind erased their tracks, hiding the encounter from the world. But in the hearts of the soldiers, something had changed forever. The war was still raging, but tonight, in the snow, humanity had been tested, and for the first time, mercy had taken its first step. The storm raged outside the base, snow hammering against the metal walls, wind howling like a beast in the night. Inside the barracks, the air was heavy, not from the cold, but from the silence of men who had broken their orders. The alien mother and her child sat near a small heater, wrapped in old blankets, their faces pale, their bodies shaking as they tried to warm themselves. The soldiers watched from a distance, some with pity in their eyes, others with fear, and some with pure anger. The youngest soldier, the one who had given bread, sat closest, his rifle resting on the floor, his eyes never leaving the child. The girl was small, her ribs showing through her thin skin, her eyes too large for her face. She clutched the bread like it was treasure, nibbling slowly, afraid it would run out. The mother stroked her daughter's head gently, whispering in a language the humans could not understand, her voice soft and full of sorrow. But no. Everyone felt sympathy. One soldier, Corporal Vance, stood with his arms crossed, his jaw tight, his voice sharp. "This is madness. You know what command told us. No contact, no mercy. These creatures killed our people, and now we're feeding them like pets." His words struck the room like bullets, breaking the silence. Several soldiers nodded in agreement, fear and anger stirring in their hearts. The squad leader, Captain Hale, remained calm, but his eyes were hard. "Look at them. Do they look like soldiers? Do they look like a threat?" But Vance stepped closer, pointing at the mother. "They don't need weapons. They use sympathy as a weapon. They come to us weak, begging. Then when our guard is down, the others attack. It's a trap. It always is." The mother looked up at the angry voices, her body tense, her arms wrapping tighter around her daughter. The girl hid her face in her mother's chest, trembling. The youngest soldier clenched his fists. "She's just a child, sir," she said. "Thank you. Do you think an enemy would do that?" But Vance spat on the ground, his voice rising. "Children grow into killers. Don't forget what their kind did to the colony on Vega, to the station at Orion. You weren't there, kid. You didn't see the bodies." The room filled with unease, every soldier remembering a different scar, a different loss. The war had been cruel, and its stories carved hatred deep into human hearts. Yet here, right in front of them, was a mother no different from their own, a child no different from the ones they once promised to protect. The contradiction tore at them, dividing the squad like a blade. Captain Hale paced slowly, his boots echoing against the floor. He understood the danger, he understood the orders, but he also understood what it meant to be human. If they turned their backs now, if they threw the mother and child out into the storm, would they know? To become the very monsters they feared? His mind battled with duty, with loyalty, with morality. The storm outside grew louder, as if nature itself was pressing against the walls, demanding a decision. The alien mother coughed, her lips cracked from the cold, her voice weak. We mean no harm. Please, no fight, no war, only my daughter." Her broken English was simple, but it hit the soldiers like thunder. For a moment, the anger dimmed, even in Vance's eyes, but pride quickly rebuilt his wall. "Sir," Vance barked, turning to Hale. "If command finds out, we're dead. They'll call us traitors. They'll strip our ranks, maybe even execute us. Are you ready to die for them?" His words echoed in every heart. The soldiers shifted, torn between fear of command and the pull of compassion. Every man weighed the cost, obedience or mercy, survival or humanity. The youngest soldier rose to his feet, his voice steady though his hands shook. "Then maybe it's time someone broke the cycle. Maybe it's time we stop seeing everything as war." Vance glared at him, fury boiling in his eyes. "You stupid kid. Your kindness will kill us all." Captain Hale raised his hand, silencing them both. "Enough. We will not tear ourselves apart while the storm howls outside." His eyes moved to the mother and child, then back to his men. "We shelter them for the night, nothing more. Tomorrow we decide." The decision was temporary, but it did little to calm the storm inside the barracks. Half the soldiers sat uneasy, polishing rifles, whispering among themselves. The other half kept watch over the mother and child, their hearts heavy with questions. Trust was cracking, suspicion rising like the cold wind outside. The child, unaware of the arguments, slowly drifted into sleep in her mother's arms, her breathing soft, her tiny hands clutching the blanket. The mother stayed awake, eyes half closed, but always alert. Like an animal waiting for danger, she knew the humans were divided. She could feel the sharp tension in the room, but she also knew that in division there was still hope, for even among enemies, some hearts could still be moved. As the night deepened, the soldiers sat in silence once again. Outside, the snow buried the tracks of their choice, hiding the truth from the world. Inside, doubt and division spread through the squad like fire through dry wood. The war was not only out there, it was here, inside them, and by morning, every man would have to choose a side. Dawn broke slowly, a gray light creeping through the frozen clouds. The storm outside had not fully ended, but the snow had softened, the world wrapped in silence. Inside the base, soldiers stirred awake, their breath still fogging in the cold air. The heater hummed faintly, its weak warmth keeping the alien mother and her daughter alive through the night. The child woke first, her eyes opening wide at the strange sight of humans sleeping with rifles at their sides. She blinked, clutching her blanket tighter, then looked up at her mother, who had not truly slept. The alien woman's eyes were red from exhaustion, but when she saw her daughter awake, she forced a gentle smile. Her arms pulled the girl close, whispering softly in her own language, words of comfort only a child could understand. At the far end of the room, the youngest soldier, Private Ellis, sat by a tin pot. He had woken early, restless from the night before, his mind filled with arguments and doubts. But as he stirred the pot of thin soup, the smell rose faintly in the air, warm and simple. It was all the base could offer, rations stretched thin, but today it meant more than survival, it meant a choice. The other soldiers watched quietly, some shaking their heads, some pretending not to notice. Corporal Vance muttered under his breath, his anger still simmering from last night. Wasting food on them, traitor's work, he hissed, though no one answered him. Captain Hale stood near the doorway, his arms crossed, his face unreadable, watching everything like a man carrying the weight of two worlds. Ellis filled a dented metal bowl and walked slowly toward the mother and child. Every step felt heavy, as if he carried not just soup, but the burden of defiance. The alien mother looked up at him, cautious, her body tense, ready to shield her daughter if needed, but Ellis bent down and set the bowl gently in front of them, his voice soft. "It's not much, but it's warm." For a moment, no one moved. The barracks seemed to hold its breath. The mother looked at the bowl, then at Ellis, her eyes shining with something he could not name. Fear, hope, gratitude, all tangled together. She lifted the bowl with trembling hands, bringing it close to her daughter first. The little girl leaned forward, her thin fingers gripping the edge, her lips touching the warm broth. The steam rose, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, warmth filled her small body. Her face lit up with a faint smile, weak but real. She whispered again in broken English, her voice barely above a breath. "Thank you." The sound pierced the air, silencing even the harshest hearts. A single word, small and fragile, yet heavy enough to move the strongest walls of hatred. Some soldiers looked away, ashamed. Others felt their grip on anger loosen, even if only for a moment. But Vance slammed his fist against a table, his voice sharp. "This is how it starts. We give them food, tomorrow they ask for more, then their kind comes to take it all." His words cracked the fragile peace, anger and fear rising again, but Ellis stood firm, his eyes meeting Vance's. "She's just a child. She's starving. How can you look at her and see a soldier?" The alien mother bowed her head deeply, her voice hoarse as she whispered, "No fight, no trick, only food, only my daughter." Her words, broken and simple, echoed in the barracks. Even Captain Hale felt his chest tighten, memories of his own family flickering in his mind. Faces a little gone because of the war, he turned away, unwilling to let his men see the conflict in his eyes. The child ate slowly, each sip like treasure, each bite a victory against the cold. When she finished, she leaned against her mother, her eyes closing in quiet peace. The mother held her close, whispering thanks again and again, her voice trembling. The soldiers watched, and in that moment, the alien no longer looked like an enemy. She looked like every mother they had ever known, clinging to hope for her child. But the division in the squad grew sharper. Some soldiers whispered that mercy was dangerous. Others whispered that maybe mercy was all that kept them human. The soup had not just warmed the aliens, it had lit a fire in the hearts of men, a fire that could burn either with compassion or with rage. The choice was still before them, and it would not remain hidden forever. Captain Hale finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "For now they eat, for now they rest, but remember, command must never know." His words carried warning and protection in equal measure. He was gambling not just with his career, but with the lives of everyone in the room. The mother nodded, understanding more than the words. She pulled the blanket tighter around her daughter, her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. For tonight, they had warmth, they had food, they had a fragile piece of humanity. But tomorrow was uncertain. Tomorrow could bring punishment, betrayal, or worse. Outside, the snow began to fall again, erasing the dawn, covering the world in silence once more. Inside, the soldiers sat divided, their hearts pulled in two directions. Mercy had been given, but mercy carried weight, and the cost of that kindness was yet to be seen. The first meal had been shared, and with it the seeds of something greater, hope or disaster. Only time would decide. The night passed heavy and long, the storm outside howling against the walls. The barracks stayed dim, the heater struggling to push back the biting cold. Most soldiers could not sleep, their thoughts restless, their loyalties divided. In one corner, the alien mother sat with her daughter, rocking the child gently, whispering songs in a language none of the humans could understand. When morning came, the snow had not stopped, the world outside still buried in white silence. Inside, Captain Hale ordered a watch rotation, pretending everything was normal, though nothing was normal anymore. The mother and her daughter had survived another night, fed, warmed, hidden from the eyes of command, but questions hung in the air heavier than the storm clouds. Private Ellis sat closest again, his young face drawn with curiosity, his eyes full of quiet questions. He studied the alien mother, not with fear, but with something else, something closer to compassion. After a long silence, he finally asked, his voice low and careful, "Why are you here? Where did you come from?" The mother looked up, startled by his words. Her daughter stirred in her arms, but did not wake, still exhausted from hunger and cold. The mother hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the soldiers who glared from across the room, suspicion still burning in their hearts. But Ellis waited, his expression gentle, his hands resting away from his rifle. At last the mother spoke, her English broken, each word heavy with effort. "Home, gone, fire, war, many die, we run, we hide, no safe place." Her voice cracked as she struggled, her eyes glistening. "Soldiers come, kill, take, everything, no food, no water, only fear, only pain." Her body trembled, her thin hands clutching her daughter as if to shield her from memories too sharp to name. The barracks grew quiet, every soldier listening despite themselves. The story was simple, broken, but the pain inside it was clear. Ellis leaned forward, his voice softer. "Your people, they attacked ours, they burned our stations, they killed families." The mother's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head desperately. "Not all, not all. Some fight, some want peace, some want life. Not war, not death, only life." Her words struck something deep, tearing through the black and white lines soldiers had drawn in their minds. The war had always been painted in absolutes. Us versus them, human versus alien, good versus evil. But here was a mother, speaking of hunger, fire, loss. The same suffering they themselves had known. Her voice was raw, her pain universal, the kind that crossed species, languages, and borders. Corporal Vance scoffed loudly, unwilling to be moved. "Lies, all lies, they always say peace, then stab us in the back, that's how they work, don't listen to her." But his voice, though sharp, carried less certainty than before. Even he had seen the child shivering, the mother begging, and no soldier in his heart could deny what his eyes had witnessed. The mother ignored his anger, her gaze fixed on Ellis, her voice trembling. "My mate, dead, burned in war, my home broken, my people run to stars, no safe place, only cold, only hunger, my child. She has no father now." Her voice cracked, a sob slipping free. The daughter stirred, clutching tighter to her mother, whispering softly in their language, a sound like comfort in the dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the heater's weak hum felt distant, the barracks drowning in the weight of her grief. Ellis swallowed hard, images of his own family flashing in his mind, memories of a sister lost in the early battles, a mother who had wept at the news. Pain was not unique to humans. Suffering was not bound to one species. It was shared, a thread binding them all in misery. Captain Hale finally broke the silence, his voice low, as if afraid to shatter the fragile air. "You tell us your story, but command will not care. They will see only an enemy." The mother nodded slowly, her tears falling freely now. "I know, but I must try for her," she said, pressing her lips against her daughter's hair. "My child, she must live. Even if I die, she must live." The words cut through every heart like a blade. Even Vance looked away, his jaw tight, his anger trembling at the edge of something else, something softer. The soldiers shifted uneasily, caught between orders and the truth before them. War told them to hate, but their eyes showed them something harder to deny. The daughter finally woke fully, blinking sleep from her eyes. She looked around the room, then at the humans, her gaze not filled with hate, but with quiet curiosity. When Ellis smiled weakly at her, she gave a small smile back, shy and fragile. That simple exchange burned away another layer of fear, another wall of division, but the moment of peace was short. A crackle of static burst from the radio on the wall, the voice of command, sharp and cold. "All units, report status, confirm no alien activity in your sector, over." The soldiers froze, their blood running cold. If they answered truthfully, the mother and child would be taken away, likely never seen again. If they lied, they risked everything, their careers, their lives, their honor. Captain Hale reached for the radio, his hand steady though his heart thundered. He glanced once at the mother, once at the child, then back at his men. For the first time, he saw doubt in Vance's eyes, conflict where there had only been rage, and in that moment, Hale knew the story of suffering had already done its work. It had planted seeds in hardened hearts, seeds that could not be erased. He lifted the radio, his voice calm. "Sector clear, no. Activity, all quiet." The lie slid through the static, binding the squad to a choice they could never undo. The mother bowed her head deeply, whispering words of thanks, her tears falling like rain onto her daughter's hair. The soldiers sat in silence, the storm outside still raging, but inside, Another storm was beginning, a storm of conscience, of loyalty, of truth, and of mercy. The storm outside had calmed, but inside the base, a greater storm raged. The soldiers had crossed a line, they had lied to command, they had sheltered the enemy, and there was no turning back. Each man felt the weight of it, the invisible chain of betrayal and mercy pulling tighter with every breath. The alien mother and her child remained in the corner, their faces pale, their bodies weak but alive. Private Ellis sat nearby, sharpening his knife, though his eyes stayed on the child who now played weakly with a button on her blanket. She was fragile, yet in her eyes there was something stubborn, something that refused to break. Ellis felt it strike his heart like a memory. His sister years ago, who had smiled even in hunger before the war took her away. That memory made his decision clear, but the others were not so certain. Captain Hale stood by the window, staring out at the endless snow, his reflection ghostly in the frosted glass. He was a soldier bound by duty, yet what he had done last night, lying to command, was treason. He had saved 2 lives, but he had also condemned himself and perhaps all his men if the truth was discovered. His thoughts spun like the storm, mercy and loyalty at war inside him. Corporal Vance paced the room like a wolf in a cage, his anger boiling, his voice sharp. "This is insane. Every second they're here, we risk execution. If command finds out, it's over for all of us." His words sliced through the room, but no one dared to argue loudly. Every soldier felt the truth of it, but truth did not erase the sight of the starving child, the mother's desperate eyes. The mother stirred suddenly, coughing hard, her body shaking. The sound echoed sharp and painful, and the soldiers turned their heads quickly. Ellis rushed to her side, concern in his eyes, but she raised a weak hand. No, fine, just cold," she whispered, though her trembling betrayed her strength was failing. The daughter pressed against her mother, whispering in her language, her small face full of worry. The sight twisted something inside the men who watched. Even Sergeant Cole, usually silent and strict, muttered under his breath, "She won't last another night like this." The silence after his words was heavy, each soldier feeling the truth strike deep. They could not keep the aliens here forever. They could not hide them from command for long. The mother was weakening, the child was too fragile, and soon the secret would spill. The squad was standing on the edge of a knife, and the next step could cut them all. That evening, Captain Hale called them together, his voice heavy. "We need to decide. No more waiting, no more silence," he said, his eyes scanning the room. "We can turn them in, follow orders, and keep our lives safe, or we can protect them and risk everything." His words hung in the air like a final judgment. Vance spoke first, his tone sharp as ever. "We hand them over, sir. It's the only way. Better them than us. They don't deserve mercy." But Ellis's voice rose quickly, stronger than before. "They do, sir. I don't care what command says. Look at them. Look at her. She's just a child. If we give them up, we're no better than monsters." The room split, voices clashing, anger and fear colliding. Some sided with Vance, fearing death, fearing dishonor. Others sided with Ellis, feeling the pull of compassion, their hearts unwilling to hand over the innocent. It was a dangerous divide, one that could tear them apart faster than any enemy bull. The mother, hearing the argument, slowly rose to her knees. Her voice shook, but she forced the words in broken English. If danger for you, then let us go. We go, die in cold, better than bring death to you." Her sacrifice struck the room like thunder, her willingness to walk into death rather than endanger those who had helped her. Ellis shook his head fiercely, his fists clenched. "No, you won't. Not while I breathe." Even Hale felt his chest tighten, respect and sorrow filling his heart. This woman was no soldier, no trickster. She was simply a mother fighting to give her daughter one more day. Finally, Hale spoke, his voice steady. "We made a choice when we fed them. When we lied to command, there is no going back now." His words silenced the room. "If we are damned, then we are damned for doing what is right." Vance's face twisted in rage, but he did not speak, his silence heavy, his eyes burning. The squad shifted uneasily, but the decision had been spoken. They would protect the mother and child no matter the cost. That night, Ellis shared his blanket with the girl, the mother watching with tired but grateful eyes. The child smiled faintly, her first real smile, and whispered again, "Thank you." It was small, but in the darkness, it was enough to give the soldiers strength. Yet danger hung over them, heavier than the storm outside. They had chosen mercy, but mercy in war was rebellion, and rebellion came with a price. By dawn, the squad knew their fates were no longer in the hands of command. They had tied their lives to the fragile thread of a mother and her child, and soon that thread would be tested in fire. The morning was gray and heavy. The storm outside had slowed, but the air inside the base was colder than ever. The soldiers sat in uneasy silence, their decision from the night before still hanging over them like a curse. They had chosen to protect the alien mother and her child, but that choice was dangerous, fragile, and impossible to hide for long. Every tick of the clock felt louder, every crackle of the radio made hearts jump. Captain Hale stood at the map table, his hands pressed against the cold metal. His men had followed him into defiance, but he knew their loyalty could not shield them from command. Sooner or later, someone would notice the silence from their sector. Someone would come to check, and when that happened, the truth would spill like blood in the snow. The mother sat near the heater, her daughter curled against her chest. She whispered softly in her own tongue, rocking the child gently, her eyes half closed from exhaustion. Her strength was fading, but her will was unbroken. The daughter clung to her mother's arm, her thin fingers gripping as if letting go meant the world would collapse. Private Ellis watched them closely, his chest tight with worry. He had given them food, warmth, protection, but it still did not feel like enough. He wanted to promise safety. He wanted to promise life, but promises in war were fragile things. He could only sit near them, sharpening his knife again, his thoughts restless. Then the radio crackled, sharp and sudden. All squads. Report status. Unusual movement detected near your sector. Patrols inbound to confirm. Over. The voice of command was cold, distant, and heavy with suspicion. Every soldier froze, eyes snapping toward Captain Hale. The trap was closing faster than they had feared. Hale gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He had lied once, but now patrols were coming. Real eyes, real soldiers who would see the truth. They had hours at best, maybe less before discovery. The weight of command and conscience pressed harder than ever. Corporal Vance stood quickly, his voice sharp. This is it. We're finished. They'll find them, and when they do, we're all dead. Unless we act now. His hand moved toward his rifle, his meaning clear. The mother's eyes widened in terror, pulling her daughter close, her body trembling. The child whimpered softly, her fear filling the room like a scream. Ellis leapt to his feet, his knife flashing as he stepped between Vance and the aliens. You won't touch them, his voice low but fierce. Vance snarled, his face twisted with rage. Are you insane, kid? You'd kill your own man for them? Ellis's grip tightened, his eyes burning. I'd protect the innocent, even from my own. The barracks erupted in chaos, soldiers shouting, hands reaching for weapons. Some moved toward Vance, others toward Ellis, the squad tearing apart at the seams. Captain Hale slammed his fist against the table, his voice booming. Enough! Drop your weapons now! His authority held them still for a heartbeat, but the air remained sharp with tension. The mother whispered, her voice cracking. Please, no fight, not for us. Her words were soft, desperate, yet they cut through the storm of anger like lightning. For a moment, even Vance hesitated, his rifle lowering slightly, his chest heaving with heavy breaths. Hale stepped forward, his eyes locked on Vance. You think killing them will save us? No, it will damn us further. Command is already coming, but I will not murder a child to ease your fear. Vance's jaw clenched, his fury still burning, but deep inside, doubt flickered. The sight of the girl's wide, terrified eyes made it harder to pull the trigger, harder to follow his rage. Ellis lowered his knife slowly, his shoulders tense. The other soldiers shifted on him. Oh, silly, their loyalty pulled in two directions. Mercy had divided them, but it had also forced them to face themselves. Were they protectors or executioners? Were they soldiers or just men hiding behind orders? The radio crackled again. Patrol ETA 1 hour, confirm status immediately. The voice was louder, more demanding. The shadow of discovery creeping closer. Hale's mind raced, his options shrinking, his choices deadly. He looked at the mother, her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. He looked at the child, clutching her blanket, whispering to her mother in fear. And he looked at his men, torn apart, their faces full of doubt, rage, sorrow, and shame. Then he spoke, his voice low but firm. If we are caught, we all fall. So we make a stand, together. No betrayal, no surrender. The squad exchanged uneasy glances, but slowly, heads nodded. Even Vance, though bitter, lowered his rifle fully, his voice a growl. This is madness, but if we burn together. It was not agreement, not truly, but it was enough to hold the fragile line. The mother bowed her head, her voice soft. Thank you, thank you. Her gratitude only deepened the weight in every soldier's heart. Mercy had bound them now, a chain stronger than orders, a bond that would soon be tested. Outside, the snow fell heavier again, covering the world in silence. Inside, the squad prepared for the patrol, their weapons ready, their nerves tight, not against the enemy outside, but against the judgment that would soon walk through their door. Humanity's mercy had been chosen, But now it would be tested in fire, and the test would decide not only the fate of the mother and child, but the souls of the men who had dared to show kindness in war. The patrol was close now, the sound of engines humming faintly through the snow-covered silence. Every soldier in the barracks felt the weight pressing down, their breaths shallow, their nerves sharp as blades. The alien mother held her daughter tight, rocking her gent. Whispering words of comfort she did not believe. The child looked up at her mother with wide eyes, too young to understand war, but old enough to sense fear. Captain Hale stood at the center of the room, his men gathered around him, divided yet bound. The radio crackled again, the voice of command sharp. Patrol will arrive in 10 minutes. Prepare for inspection. Over. The words echoed like a death sentence. If the patrol found the mother and child, it would not end with mercy. It would end with chains or bullets. Private Ellis's heart pounded, his eyes fixed on the little girl. He thought of his sister again, of the smile he would never see, of the war that had stolen her from him. He knew he could not let this child face the same fate. Even if it cost him his life, even if it branded him a traitor, he would protect her. Corporal Vance paced like a trapped wolf, his fists clenched. His anger had cooled into something darker. Fear of death, fear of command, fear of the choice he had made. Yet deep inside, even he could not deny what his eyes had seen these past nights. The aliens were not monsters. They were not devils. They were only survivors, no different from himself. The engines grew louder, the patrol approaching fast. Hale spoke, his voice steady. We have one chance. Hide them. If they search too deep, we fight. The room fell silent at his words, the line drawn clear. It was treason now, open and undeniable, but no one moved to stop him. Ellis guided the mother and child to a hidden crawlspace beneath the floorboards. The mother's eyes shone with tears, her lips trembling as she whispered, "You risk all for us. Why?" Ellis paused, his throat tight, then whispered back, "Because no child deserves to die in the cold." The girl reached out, her small hand brushing against Ellis's before she disappeared into the shadows. The touch was soft, but it burned in his heart like fire. He closed the floor and stood, his rifle ready, his decision made. Whatever came through that door, he would not betray them. Moments later, the knock thundered against the door. The patrol entered, snow clinging to their uniforms, rifles slung over their shoulders, eyes sharp and suspicious. "Inspection," their commander barked, his gaze scanning the barracks. Captain Hale stepped forward, calm but firm. "You won't find anything here. Storm's been quiet, no movement, just cold and silence." The patrol spread out, boots stomping, hands pulling open lockers, eyes searching corners. Every soldier in Hale's squad stood stiff, their hearts pounding, their fingers twitching near their weapons. The sound of footsteps above the crawlspace made Ellis's blood run cold. If the patrol pressed harder, if they searched beneath the floor, the secret would shatter. One of the patrol soldiers paused near the heater, sniffing the air. "Strange," he muttered. "Smells like soup, and too much warmth for ration use." Vance's jaw clenched, his hand tightening on his rifle. The patrol leader narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. "Report says unusual activity in this sector. So tell me, Captain, are you hiding something?" Hale met his stare without flinching, his voice like iron. "My men and I follow orders, nothing more." But even as he spoke, he knew it was only words, fragile shields against suspicion. The patrol leader circled, eyes sharp, waiting for a crack in the wall of silence. The moment stretched, the air so heavy it felt like stone. Then, from beneath the floor, a sound slipped through. A cough, small and soft, the child's cough. Ellis's heart stopped. Every soldier in his squad froze. The patrol leader's eyes narrowed, suspicion turning into certainty. "What was that?" he demanded, stepping toward the sound. Rifles rose, tension snapping like thunder. Hale barked, "Enough! That's close enough!" The patrol soldiers froze, confusion spreading. The air exploded with danger. One wrong move and bullets woe. But fly. The squad had crossed the final line, their mercy exposed, their loyalty to command shattered. The mother clutched her daughter in the darkness, whispering prayers. The child's small fingers gripped her tightly, tears sliding down her cheeks. They could hear the voices above, the anger, the fear, the danger. They knew their fate rested not in their own hands, but in the hearts of the humans who had chosen to protect them. For a long, heavy moment, no one moved. Then Hale lowered his rifle slightly, his voice heavy. "If it is treason to protect the innocent, then call me traitor." Ellis stepped beside him, his rifle steady. One by one, the other soldiers followed, their weapons rising, their eyes blazing with defiance. Even Vance, though shaking, lifted his rifle at last, his voice bitter but firm. "Damn it all. We stand together." The patrol commander stared, stunned by the rebellion. His men hesitated, outnumbered in spirit if not in strength. The standoff stretched, two paths opening in the snow, one of slaughter, one of mercy. Which path humanity would choose lay in this moment, in the breath between life and death. And then, slowly, the patrol commander lowered his weapon. His men followed, the tension breaking like glass. He stared at Hale, his voice quiet. "You've chosen your side, Captain. May God help you, because command will not." With that, the patrol turned and left, the door slamming against the storm outside. The squad stood frozen, their breaths heavy, their bodies trembling. The mother and child emerged from the crawl space, their eyes wide, their faces wet with tears. The daughter rushed to Ellis, hugging him tightly, whispering again in broken English, "Thank you." The word was small, but it was enough. They had risked everything, burned every bridge, but mercy had survived. The war outside still raged, the command still hunted. But inside this frozen outpost, humanity had won a battle of its own. A new beginning, fragile and uncertain, had been born in the snow. Whether it led to peace or war, no man could know. But in that moment, the soldiers knew they had chosen not hatred, not fear, but compassion, and for the first time in years, they felt human again.